Hi, so this is my first time trying to record audio commentary for something like this. I do a good bit of sound engineering, but I'm not used to recording this sort of commentary. I'll be using a few sound engineering tricks like SoundGate and things like that, but I'm sure it won't be perfect. So I'll be trying to work on that in the future and see how that goes. Also my first time trying to edit video in Reaper, which is the software I typically use to record my songs and so forth. It's taken me a good bit to get the microphone up and running. You'd think would be kind of less of a pain, but anyway, here it goes. So hopefully it'll turn out alright. We'll see how that is. So this was a quick pen sketch that I did a few days ago with some Sharpie markers and pencil. The original image is probably about, I'd say, maybe like 2 or 3 inches tall by 1 or 2 inches wide, something like that. It's pretty small, so it's blown up to a very large image here from a 600 dpi scan, and then imported into a 300 dpi image. So this is blown up considerably larger than the original, so a lot of the mistakes and little tiny details that you probably wouldn't see stand out in the original drawing look pretty bad when you blow them up that big. So a little bit of digital correction has been done here as far as like trying to fix the line art. There are some symmetry problems, which are again kind of, I mean, when you zoom out they're easier to spot, but at the same time the tiny size can kind of skew things a little bit. Also, when you get color in there, you start to realize that some of the stuff is not as symmetrical or as well lined up as you had originally thought it was. So anyway, with all that stuff done and my colors already picked out ahead of time so that I'm not wasting time on boring stuff that everybody knows how to do, like flats and things like that, getting in here to try to kind of do like the little Lambertian highlight, I guess like the extremes, so not the specular highlights, but just if you're familiar with Lambert shading, it's just the brightest part that is non-specular. So trying to kind of get that in there and lay in, I don't know, just, you know, planes. I guess that's not really anything too special to talk about, really. I guess, you know, you have to do that with everything. But so I'm just trying to kind of lay out like some flat planes, especially here for the chest, because the original sketch didn't include anywhere near that far down in the shirt where the shoulders are drawn in. There was just what I did digital coming in here. The part of the lapel of the jacket was already there, but some of the rest I just drew in. So anyway, that's why there's a lot less details, especially as far as ink goes, below his collarbone, and why there is actually no collarbone at all, which that'll be worked on here with the colors. So of course, before I start any kind of specular highlights or anything, I want to get most of this Lambert shading stuff down. I typically paint without line art, but for quick sketches like this, I mean, this stuff is really fast to do. I think this entire image from start to finish was somewhere around 2 hours or so. It's probably about an hour or so between the pencil sketch and the Sharpie marker sketch. And so then importing it into digital and trying to work on the colors and stuff like that was probably about an hour or so as well. I think the video is I think 52 minutes, 53 minutes, and it's being sped up at 2.75 times. I mean, real reason for that speed is really just because that kind of allows the video to end up being about 20 minutes long. Seemed like a good point. I don't really want to go for a whole hour trying to talk about everything in this, because it's, I mean, it's a fairly simplistic image, so it's not really like I got a lot of you know, crazy details to go into. Now for like a real painting, something taken like in the 20-30 hour mark, yeah, that's going to be way too long to record probably anyway, and even the sped up video would be insane. There are guys who do that. I'm trying to remember his real name. I know it somewhere in the back of my brain, but I think he's a League artist that calls himself D of Calviz. I think I want to say David Ortiz, but I don't think that's right. It's definitely David something. But yeah, when people go by pseudonyms, it's hard for me to, sometimes I don't remember their real names because of that. One reason I don't like using a pseudonym. But one place where it could be really useful is if you had a famous name. So anyway, we're starting to get into the specular highlights here. I'm just trying to kind of like work on, you know, really basic. I can tend to be bad about doing that, kind of like um, guessing in the specular details and getting them really messy, and then I'll find a lot of times later I have to go back and completely redo them because they're just, you know, was really just kind of getting something down to see how it looks. Not worried about blending or any of that kind of stuff at that point. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Nathan Fowkes would talk about in our classes. He would say, you know, if you want to go ahead and render while you're at the very beginning stages, like why not? People only wait to render to the end if it suits their workflow, which for me it could be one or the other. They're definitely, as you can see here, starting to blend some stuff, just because I felt like that highlight needed to move over to the right a little bit, and then starting to get in some cast shadows here, which I typically wait till usually toward the end of the image to work on. Again, it just really just kind of depends on the situation. Like if like my eye just kind of draws me around the image, so when you're watching me paint, I know I can be very kind of like, what I'm trying to say, like kind of low attention span, like jumping back and forth to different areas of the image a lot. That, you know, a lot of people will tend to work on, like, you know, as they refer to passes, sort of like you know, work on shadows and then work on highlights and then maybe work on occlusions or something like that, whereas I tend to work on more of areas. So like, and I've heard Raposa talk about that too, and it's not that I'm doing that intentionally because he said that, it's just, it works for me pretty well. So my eye will draw me somewhere and go like, oh yeah, that eye looks really crappy, I'm going to go and try to work on that. And so then that could end up with me working on any of the above mentioned details, such as the Lambert shading, the highlights, the specular, what have you, occlusion, anything that's in that area, which then has me, since I keep all that stuff on different layers, can have me jumping around to different layers a lot. Oh yeah, and as this goes by and I try to get better at this sort of thing, I'll try to get better about, you know, things like sniffles, coughing, throat clearing, little annoying noises like that, and also try to work on not being too redundant. I was watching a video the other day, and this dude, oh god, what was he kept saying? He kept saying sort of. He's a fantastic artist. I mean, absolutely amazing, but my god, I think from the point I noticed that he was repeatedly using that phrase, I must have counted him say it like 50 times, and that video was still like another, I don't know, it was probably 20 or 30 minutes before the point where I had that realization. So I can tend to do that. I'll look at my voice to text back and realize that I said the same thing like twice in the same, you know, text message. So little things like that, trying to say like, well, that kind of stuff can get really kind of grating to watch. I can also tell I'm getting a little bit of vocal fry stuff going on there, and that can be really annoying too, so I'll try not to do that. Typically, if you have a deeper voice, or if you kind of tend to be indecisive about the things that you're saying, you can tend to vocal fry, and I'll try to get better at that. And also try to work on little things like sound engineering tricks, like I was talking about earlier for music, where you try to like kind of well, one thing called de-essing, which is where you basically make the S's and the T's and all the sibilant sounds not so sharp and ear-piercing. That's one thing I'm going to have to work on because I'm not used to mixing vocals. I've never messed with it. I understand the theories behind it. And I do have some programs that can do it, but not the ones that do it very easily. Like there's, if you're familiar with some music production stuff, there's a program called, or not a program, but a plugin called Soothe 2, which can basically kind of like de-ess things on its own. They use it on cymbals and vocals and all kinds of things. So as time goes by, I'll try to learn to use that and get those sharp S's to stop hitting so hard. I am using a noise gate, which hopefully is keeping down the background sound. It's not perfect. It's a very, very good noise gate. It's the one I use for my really high gain guitar tones. So it is very, very good. It's just very, very picky, and the details are extremely complicated. And there are things about guitar that allow the gate to work better for guitar than it does for your voice. Like for example, again, one of the things we work with in guitar is called the direct input, or the DI guitar signal, which is basically just the guitar with absolutely no effects whatsoever on top of it. So you can, like, things in the guitar signal after you put stuff on it can trick the noise gate, like distortion is going to cause a higher gain hiss and things like that. So you can go into this particular noise gate and tell it, you know, okay, don't be triggered by this thing right here. Whereas most lower level noise gates just have the threshold, which is just the volume at which it detects noise. So basically, if background noise is below this level, it gets cut out. If it's above this, the gate opens up and you hear the noise. So I'm sure you're probably hearing little tail ends after I'm saying things and it goes silent. You're probably hearing a little tss at the end. I don't know. I do have the ability to manipulate this after I've done the recording, so I will be able to play with it and try to get it just right, and hopefully it'll be good. I'm not going to go so far as to go in and completely edit out all the silent parts. That's just unnerving. Even I won't even do that with my music, honestly. Now, real deal music producers will do that. But anyway, so sorry, I'm kind of digressing into the whole audio production side of this thing. As far as the painting goes, trying to kind of still work on the specular highlights here, getting into the jaw and trying to blend it in without letting it get too dark. I don't really want any of this stuff to have like a complete shadow on it like you'd see in a cast shadow or something that you would see in the like completely underneath forms. So this lighting is supposed to be kind of just from directly overhead and just slightly in front of the subject. Just enough so that we're not getting a complete shadow on all the sides and front and everything that is not the top planes. Didn't really go with like a 3-point lighting for this or anything, again, as this is just kind of a sketch. I did kind of do like a little preliminary test out before I recorded the video just to see, you know, kind of block it out a little bit and see if it was going to look halfway decent, because it really does suck to go through the trouble of recording a video when you don't really know if it's going to turn out well. I did that with a painting a couple of months ago that I'll probably put out soon. It's Slash from Ninja Turtles. Try to do them in kind of the 87 style, as that is always my favorite anyway. And I think I repainted that thing 4, maybe even 5 times. I recorded it the first time, and it was, I mean, it was fairly long, so it was a good like 5 or 6 videos that I stitched together. And I guess I should say was going to, because I don't think I actually ended up doing that because it was so bad. I just said, you know what, I'm just gonna leave this alone, and just, you know, and eventually I ended up coming back to it after I messed with it enough times. I feel like I got one that I finally like. I was able to kind of, because of my workflow, I can change some colors while not having to redo the rendering. So basically I just changed a lot of colors and then worked further into it after I did that, tried to work on some more blending and stuff. So speaking of blending, we're kind of working on, as you can see, the collarbone and pectorals here, trying to get those in there. I'm kind of honestly surprised at the result I got from not having any reference there. Really is something I have a lot of trouble with, and in the future I probably will spend some time, no, not probably, will definitely spend some time working with reference for that, so I can try to get the chest and stuff better. There, I think I accidentally filled the line art with something that it wasn't supposed to have, and it went all light on us there. So used a few little different techniques than I usually do when I import one of these line arts. Typically I try to kind of basically, I mean, a lot of people do this where you'll just take the mode and set it to multiply, and then basically use a levels adjustment layer or direct adjustment, whichever you prefer to use, to basically just kind of turn anything that is not the line art pure white so that it becomes completely invisible when you turn it to multiply mode. And then of course you probably start to come in there and clean up some of the dingy stuff and spots and little things that, you know, like say the graphite that gets on the bottom of your hand when you're drawing. I don't use the cover sheet most of the time. I've been aware of that whole process for many years. I will do it if I'm trying to do a really nice like pencil shaded drawing where I'm not going to be erasing the pencil afterward. But honestly, it can be kind of annoying because it can cover up what you're trying to see, and also I'm just drawing on a little lap desk sitting in my chair. I don't really have a real drawing desk anymore because most of the stuff I do is digital, so things like this is just, you know, for practice and kind of for fun. Makes it something that's kind of, I wouldn't say necessarily quick or easy, but something that's a lot easier to make a video for than one of the full-length videos, especially something that's going into that, you know, like that 20-30 hour range. You just can't unless, I mean, you know, you just really want to go through a lot of crap for it. But like that guy I was talking about earlier from Riot, where he just, you know, he's got these 100-hour paintings and he's making like full videos of them. I mean, honestly, I literally don't even have the disk capacity to hold stuff like that. bought my drives when the expense of solid state drives was still very, very, very high, so I've got really small ones because of that. Sorry there. Wow, I didn't realize my monitor would actually time out while I was watching a video, but I guess because I'm in Reaper, it kind of freaked me out for a second there. I thought it corrupted or had some kind of problem. Hopefully that won't come through in the recording, but whatever. Anyway, so we're working on some highlights for the hair here. Just some quick and dirty speculars. Probably, honestly, pretty different than I would do them if this was a fully painted image. And just kind of doing the same thing here on the collar or lapel, whatever, of his gi, kind of giving it a little bit of a brushy look. Well, one, to maintain this brushy style, but also to kind of give it a little bit of a cloth feel. I'm not trying to get too textured with it. I don't feel like a really textured look would really work well with this. Typically doesn't work great with line art in general, other than the textures of the line art itself, which I'm not always a big fan of. I do kind of like how it's coming off here. I'm working on another image right now from Tekken that has some digital line art, just completely digital from the beginning. And yeah, I don't like how clean the line art is, but that is partially due to the brush that I used, of course. It's using a very, very just plain circular brush. There's a lot of stuff going on under the hood as far as like the pressure and flow and imitating things like, you know, real media. So that part of it is, you know, it's doing something a little more than the normal average round brush, but really it's still, it's pretty plain. There's no texture in it or anything like that. Honestly, I feel like there should be texture in this traditional line art I'm using here, but I don't necessarily want it to be quite as like dirty as what you're seeing here, because that texture right there isn't necessarily the paper. I think that actually is more of the texture of my lap desk that I'm drawing on. So in the future I may try to move to something a little smoother so that I'm just getting the paper textures and not having that. Also, those Sharpie markers are not the greatest thing in the world. They're definitely pretty cool, but it's not a Sakura Micron Pigma marker like I would like to be using. But, you know, those things are just very expensive, and I know you can buy them in bulk and stuff like that, but for somebody like me who's not very serious about traditional stuff, and is just doing stuff like this for kind of for fun and practice, so, looks like I'm running out of time here. My apologies. I'll try to plan these things a little better in the future. This was really just kind of more of a test to see how this whole thing went. I'll have the image posted on DeviantArt with the location in the description, since I'm still not able to post any kind of links on YouTube. I forget exactly what the criteria is, but there's a certain level of engagement or follows or something that you have to get before they'll allow you to do that. But yeah, maybe at some point here. So anyway, go and check out the finished image. Probably look a lot better than trying to watch the video footage of this. I tried to increase the resolution before I started recording the video, but it didn't really seem to work with me there. I think it's locked to your native resolution, so even though I can use DSR super resolutions for games and videos and things like that, apparently it does not want to let me record at a higher resolution than my native, which is kind of weird. I would really think you'd be able to do that. The two shouldn't be directly correlated, but oh well, whatever. So anyway, if you watched this far, I appreciate it, and hopefully I'll be able to get these things looking and sounding better with time here.